How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new story. Today we got two story times of spoiled kids getting hit by reality. The first one is of a spoiled brat who tries to bribe his teacher to let him cheat on an exam. The second one is of a spoiled girl who flexes like crazy to her friends, but then her dad finds out and does something pretty epic. And with that all being said, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, and let's just jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted the first story Charlie. So anyways, right, Charlie, there's a kid in Charlie's school who we're going to call the spoiled kid. And this kid was one of those kids who is a spoiled kid because, yes, he had access to a lot of money, but also his parents were kind of wimps when it came to parenting him. That might sound a little harsh, but you guys got to understand that when you're a parent, you also need to set boundaries for your kids, especially if your kid is doing something that isn't, acceptable in the real world, isn't acceptable in school. So, for example, if, your son is demanding something in it, or your daughter is doing something like that, it is your kind of responsibility to step in and set things straight. So unfortunately for the spoiled kid, his parents had kind of failed him in that regard. Did it help that he also was able to get anything he ever wanted because his parents had a ton of money and were just like recklessly spend it on him? That probably didn't help either. But this all happened one day when they were both in a math class. So Charlie and the spoiled kid had this math class together. And there was a pretty big exam coming up in the class, like a really big exam, something that would really alter your grade no matter what. And it wasn't something where it wasn't like the class had one test that would decide your grade, but it was one of those large enough exams that if you didn't do well, it's going to be very difficult to recover your grade. I'm sure you could try, you could make it better, but this was substantial enough that it was time to study. Anyways, so the teacher gave a pretty good or a pretty fair, it gave a pretty fair warning to everyone to the class about the difficulty and the importance of this exam. The teacher basically said, hey, if you study for this week, you will be fine. I can't give you my word about that because I don't know how each of you individually do, but you will be fine. That's all I'm trying to say. And he says, but I will warn you, this is not an exam that you can just you can wing. This is not a wingable exam, and it is worth enough of your grade that you're not even going to want to risk it, even if you truly do believe that you could wing it with no problems. So anyways, that was enough for Charlie to hear, for him to actually put in some time studying, but of course, the spoiled kid, he saw it a little bit differently. The spoiled kid saw things and a little bit differently in the regards that he already had a plan. So the spoiled kid thought, okay, teachers, they don't have a crazy high salary, which is a fact. I personally think it's kind of a shame how low teachers' salaries are, but it is also kind of just a fact. And the spoiled kid's like, well, I always get what I want, so I can give the teacher what they want, which is money, and I can get what I want, which is a good grade, and I don't even have to try. That was actually the spoiled kid's mentality, and you might be thinking, Connor, how do you know? Or how does Charlie know? And well, the spoiled kid literally was bragging to Charlie about what he was planning to do. Yeah, so the spoiled kid went up to Charlie because they weren't friends, but they weren't enemies. There's a lot of situations in these stories I've been receiving from you guys about you kind of know someone where you're close enough to talk to them, but not close enough where, you associate with them. Which anyways, this was another one of those situations. So the spoiled kid comes up to Charlie and explains exactly what he's going to do. He says, okay, on the day of the test, teacher's going to hand it out, and I'm not going to go up right away. I'm going to give it a second, and then I'm going to walk up to the teacher's desk so that everyone else is pretty deep in their test and they won't hear what I have to say. I'll say, can I speak to you for a second privately? The teacher will say, sure. We'll go either out of the classroom or to the corner of the class. I will have $200 in cash in an envelope. I will say, I will tell him that I have $200 in cash in an envelope, and that if he wants it, all he has to do is give me a 90%, not 100%, a 90%. And with that, I said, I will go back and sit there as if I'm finishing my exam. You will have the $200 and we'll both get what we want. Charlie, when he hears this, immediately knows that the teacher's not going to do this. One, teacher probably has a few morals. If you take a teaching job, it is most likely that you have decided to put making a difference above money. Obviously, teachers probably like money too, but if you take a job as a professor, unless you're some very prestigious college professor, right? If you take a job as a teacher, like a high school teacher, you're not taking that job because you're like, oh yes, I will make a lot of money doing that. So anyways, sure enough, right? The subscriber, Charlie, is like, come on, bro, this is not a good idea. Because as I was saying, even if the teacher did kind of like money, even though I said they probably chose the teaching profession, not because they liked money, but because, they enjoyed teaching, because you don't get paid a lot as a teacher, but also you could lose your job if you accept a bribe from a student. If that got out, the teacher is probably smart enough to realize, okay, even if I have completely changed my opinions on wanting to be a teacher and I just want money, $200, bro, is not enough for me to risk my entire $30,000 salary, or whatever an average teacher salary is. Probably, maybe a little bit higher than that, but in that range. $200 is what I'm trying to say is less than 1% of whatever that would be. So, super not worth it, because the risk of getting caught is just simply too high. So Charlie tries to say, he doesn't go into deep explanation, which, maybe he should have, but whatever, it's all in the past. He basically just says, dude, that's a bad idea. Like, you should probably just study just in case that doesn't work at a minimum. Like, sure, you can try it. And then he's like, dude, the whole point of me doing this is so that I don't have to study and can just chill. So why would I study, then try and bribe my teacher? And, Charlie's like, okay, bro, like, honestly, you can do what you want. It's not, I really don't. You can do what you want, bro. It's fine. You can do what you want. So anyways, the day of the test comes around, and Charlie had studied accordingly and had done a decent amount. I feel like you can always study more. I feel like you can always practice more. You can always do a little bit more. That's why I like when I get projects instead of exams for like end of year things to do. Because with a project, I'm like, okay, I am done. With studying, I could always review more. Anyways, though. So yeah, sure enough, right, the subscriber, he gets there. Everyone gets there, and once again, the spoiled kid gets there, looking all confident and cocky. Yes, sure enough, the subscriber, he gets there, and the spoiled kid looking mad cocky as he sits down. So the teacher walks around and hands out the exams. And the subscriber, Charlie, is like, you know what? I'm just going to get to it. Doesn't really matter to me what the spoiled kid ends up doing. He's going to do what he wants to do anyways. Let me just focus in on my exam so that I can do well. Obviously, Charlie was half telling the truth to himself, half he's going to pay attention to what happens. Come on, man. If you know someone is trying to bribe the teacher, you're going to be a little curious to see if the teacher falls for it or not. Like, at least I would be a little curious personally if that was happening. So I totally understand where Charlie's coming from. Anyways, though, so sure enough, the spoiled kid stands up and goes to the front of the class. Anyways, so sure enough, the subscriber watches as the spoiled kid walks up to the front of the class. And the spoiled kid walks up to the front of the class and whispers to the teacher, hey, can I speak to you privately for a second? So thankfully for this quality of this story, they do not step outside, but they step to the side of the classroom. And what exactly is said it's a little questionable because the subscriber, he was far enough away that he didn't hear the exact words, but he heard enough and he could fill in the gaps. So this is basically how the conversation went. The spoiled kid goes up to the teacher and is like, hey, I want to offer you a deal. I want to offer you an opportunity. And the teacher's like, are you sure you want to do this during the time for your exam? We can talk after if you'd like, but I don't want to take away from your test time because you're not allowed to do this exam again. And the spoiled kid's like, no, trust me, this is worth your time. The teacher's like, okay. And the spoiled kid's like, look, in this envelope, I have $200 in cash, hard cash, and it can be yours. All you got to do is I'm going to sit down. I'm going to fill in random answers. And if I get a 90 on that exam after I filled in random answers, this cash is all yours. The teacher's looking at him, kind of with the look of excuse me, son? Excuse me? So the teacher says, so, let me get this straight. You're offering me $200 to give you a 90% on your exam, even if your work does not merit a 90%. And the spoiled kid's like, well, yeah. It's like, you help me out, I help you out. It's like, I think it's a pretty good deal. The teacher's like, okay. Do you want to come with me for a second? And the spoiled kid, there's this nice, there's a little look of smirkness, a smirk, a lot of smugness on his face, right? He was very confident in what he was doing because he always gets his way. Why wouldn't this go down perfectly, right? I mean, why wouldn't this work? And so the spoiled kid's face, you start to see the fear in this kid's eyes, right? You start to see the kid starts to be like, oh no, because he's like, well, Mr. Teacher, like, or Mr. Davenport, like, I can always just sit back down. Like, if you don't want to accept the deal, like, that's fine. I'll finish out the test. At this point, right, the spoiled kid was just like, okay, just let me sit back down. I'm sorry I even said anything. And then Mr. Davenport's like, I'm sorry, like, you need to come with me now. And the spoiled kid's like, but sir, I only have so much time to do my exam. And the teacher literally says, well, you did, but you're not taking that exam. So basically what happened is the teacher brought the spoiled kid to the principal's office with, like, he's holding the envelope of $200. The teacher tells the principal exactly what happens. Not only does the teacher kind of have a sense of authority because he's a teacher, but also the spoiled kid has the $200 from the story in his... Sorry. In his hands, bro. So yeah, the spoiled kid actually, his parents were contacted, he fails that exam, and he learns his lesson. We're going to call the subscriber submitted the next story, Lily. So yeah, Lily was a girl who went to school, and this was 7th grade, or 8th grade, let's say 7th grade. So she was in the tail end of middle school, right before high school. And unfortunately, Lily was, or not unfortunately, but just fact, Lily was in kind of a more higher income neighborhood, or she was in a district where there was both higher income, middle income. Her family did fine, but she was not on the higher income side. And she was kind of in a friend group, kind of by necessity to have friends, so it wasn't her closest people. And by the way, if you guys are in middle school or high school or college or just some place in life and you might not have the exact friends that you want, don't worry about it. You'll find them, and if you need to just stick with some people just to stick by, like, don't feel bad about yourself. It happens. Anyways, there's this one girl who we're going to call the spoiled girl. And this girl, every single day, would just be, she would kind of be the worst, right? Because she had a group of friends that Lily was a part of, but this girl would always she was always bragging, right? She was always flexing, and whether she did it intentionally or not is kind of questionable. I think some of it was subconscious because she just spoke about her life, and her life was just so ridiculous in a sense of that she had an unlimited credit card spending, she could do anything she wanted. But to a certain degree, Lily does believe that some of it was intentional. You know, it just is what it is. She thinks some of it actually was intentional and a little bit malicious, because this girl definitely got a lot of her own, or the spoiled girl got a lot of her own sense of self, right? A lot of her own sense of her being from her having all this stuff, which is a very, very, very dangerous way to go about living life. Anyways, so for an example, one day, the spoiled girl and Lily and the other girls that they were all friends with were sitting at a table together. And the spoiled girl was going on about how she just came back from some crazy vacation, and that's why she wasn't here in school the last couple days, and how she is paying some tutor to do all the homework or the schoolwork that she missed. Because whenever you have to take a vacation or a break from school, whether it's one you want to do or you have to do it, you normally have to do a lot of makeup work. And I always hated it when I was in high school and middle school, having to miss days, because I would just get so behind. It would be so stressful, especially if it was like my parents wanted to go on like a fun type of trip, even if it was just like a day or something. I'm like, can it please not be during school? Like, I'm going to be stressed out about what I have to do while I'm gone. Anyways, though, so yeah, the spoiled girl was just talking about the awesome trip she went on, some crazy whatever, super yacht, whatever type thing, and that she just paid a tutor to do all of her work so she wouldn't be stressed about it anyways. So yeah, sure enough, everyone's like, okay, like, nice, spoiled girl, like, really glad to hear that. And she's just like, oh, and by the way, and she like extends her foot to show some like new super expensive designer shoe type thing. She's like, I also just got these yesterday. Girl's like, show me your shoes right now. And she was like, and then like everyone's like, I guess. So they extend their shoes, and they're not bad shoes, bro, but they're whatever. But and the spoiled girl would give all these like these backward compliments. She's like, oh, those are so cute, like, are these like hand-me-downs? Like, they're so nostalgic. Oh, like, you really been wearing those in? I think that's a look somewhere. Oh, like, just all of these like backward compliments that you can't, like, at least in girl world, you can't be. What do I know about high school girl world, bro? Like, what do I know? But from what I've been told is like, you can't aggressively fight back when it's a backwards compliment, because it's supposed to be, you're like, oh, you're being the aggressive one now. Yeah, I'm glad I had guy friendships where we just like sit around, play video games, and just make fart jokes. A simpler life can be a better life sometimes, guys. But one time, she went a little bit too far. So she was being picked up from school, as a lot of them were picked up from school. Some of them walked back, some of them took the bus, but a lot of times their parents came and picked them up. So basically what happened was, they all, their parents would come in whatever cars they drove. And all the girls' parents drove, their cars were, pretty standard cars. Nothing too damaged or too old. There's nothing wrong with an old car. In fact, you probably got a good deal for a good car. Anyways, though, when the spoiled girl's car, rolled up, she was all of a sudden like, oh, haha, guys, isn't it so funny? I can always tell when it's my car rolling up because just by, I know the price of the car. I don't even, really need to see who's inside the car. I know when a car rolls up for one of us, I know when it's mine. Which is, kind of dumb. It's you normally recognize your car by what it looks like, not by the price you think the car has. And you definitely don't recognize it by, looking inside. So this comment was literally just to say, haha, my car is more expensive, or my dad's car is more expensive than your dad's car. Lol. Literally had no value besides that. However, the spoiled girl made a mistake here, something that none of them really knew until later. So in this line that they were waiting for to be picked up in, there was a lot of other people present as well. There's a lot of other parents present as well. So a parent overheard this comment and decided to tell the spoiled girl's dad because, the parent was like, wow, you're really saying that? That's not a good thing to say, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, the next day in school, the spoiled girl comes in tears, flustered, sits down at the table. So obviously, Lily and all the other girls are like, oh my God, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she was like, no, I'm not okay. I'll never be okay. So they're obviously all like, oh, what happened? Are you good? And she's like, I can't believe this, but my dad, someone was apparently overheard something I said and they totally lied about it. But my dad said that, he's really worried about the way that I'm acting and the way that, the way that I, my unlimited allowance is affecting me in my growth and development. And he says that he's decided to cut me off from my allowance. And the only thing I can have is if it goes through him. Those are necessities like new clothes for school and books. And what am I going to do, girls? And they're all kind of looking at her like, that's actually the life that we live, by the way. Believe it or not, I think you'll survive. No, but they're like, oh, wow, that sucks so much. And they're kind of looking at each other like, that really doesn't suck so much. You're just explaining how we live our lives and then crying about it, but whatever, right? So yeah, the only sad thing about the story is that 1 week later, the girl got her unlimited allowance back because apparently she was crying and being annoying enough back at home that eventually the dad caved, which is not great parenting. I think if you make a statement like that, you should really stick with it, especially because it was for pretty good reasons, I'm not going to lie.